Welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, it's Friday, 4:44 p.m. Central, 5:44 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a hot day in Washington, D.C., 91 degrees, partly cloudy in our nation's capital. So much is happening today. We're going to start with our White House rundown. Gary Franchi here, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming ally, Trump Daily Post. Tonight, the top line from the White House is unmistakable. President Trump's economy is delivering again. The president is taking that winning message directly to Wisconsin, and the administration is moving to strengthen national security leadership, while Democrats face fresh questions about what they hid from the country. See, the biggest White House development today is the May jobs report, and it's another strong economic win under President Trump. The White House message today centers on 172,000 new jobs added in May, far above the 85,000 expected, with April also revised sharply upward from 115,000 to 179,000. That means the last 2 months added more than 90,000 jobs above prior estimates. Unemployment held at 4.3%, manufacturing expanded for a fifth straight month, and federal government employment is down by 333,000 since President Trump took office. That's what draining the swamp looks like. The White House is also highlighting that 853,000 native-born Americans have gained employment under President Trump, with 7,000 manufacturing jobs and 17,000 construction jobs added in May. The broader message from the administration is clear. The experts were wrong again. The America First economy is producing real gains for workers, families, and blue-collar communities. And the president carried that message on the road today in Chippewa County, Wisconsin, where he's touting major America First wins directly to the heartland. The White House line emphasizes tax relief, including no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security, stronger take-home pay for working families, border security gains, support for rural health care, and policy wins for farmers. The contrast is the administration is drawing now. It's straightforward. While President Trump is outselling results, Democrats are being pressed over fresh Jill Biden revelations tied to the concealment of Joe Biden's decline when Biden was president. Yes, the cat's out of the bag. They can't hide any longer, but the White House is also spotlighting President Trump's appointment of Bill Plute as acting director of national intelligence, as Tulsi Gabbard will be resigning this month. The administration's argument is that Plute brings outsider leadership, proven integrity, and an America First focus to an intelligence community that must serve the American people, confront global threats, and stop protecting Washington insiders. It's being framed inside the Trump administration as another step towards accountability and house cleaning inside the permanent bureaucracy. And according to the daily guidance, President Trump began the day with executive time at the White House, a policy meeting in the Oval, before traveling off to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. The schedule also included a pre-taped interview and a roundtable on American agriculture, followed later by travel to Bedminster, New Jersey. Looking ahead, the guidance says the president will remain in Bedminster through the weekend, take part in a tele-rally on June 8th, attend the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden, and return to the White House on June 9th for executive time and additional Oval Office policy meetings. From the Pool Report, Kevin Hassett announced that he will accompany the President Trump, to the G7 summit in France. He'll be there June 15th through June 17th. That update came during a press gaggle and points to Hassett's continued role in the administration's international economic agenda as President Trump heads into another major meeting with world leaders. So taken together, the past 24 hours show a White House focused on economic growth, active presidential travel, stronger intelligence leadership, and continued preparation for major international engagement. President Trump's pushing a results-driven message from the numbers to the road, and the administration is making clear that its agenda is centered on American workers, American strength, and promises kept. And with that, our White House update is complete. Let's turn now to the rest of the day's top stories that's shaping the national conversation. Welcome again to Between the Headlines. I'm Gary Franchi, your chief White House correspondent, broadcasting from just outside of Chicago. And the unfortunate news that is now hitting the wires with respect to Chicago, you may have heard that the Chicago Bears have called it quits. That's right, the Chicago Bears no longer calling Chicago their home. They're moving across the border to Hammond, Indiana. This marks a major blow to Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker. No doubt the Republicans in Illinois and nationwide will see this as another reason why blue cities are complete failures and their policies are driving businesses out of the states. Well, now it's not just businesses. It is a multi-million-dollar franchise, an NFL league team that has been in Chicago for 100 years. They said, sorry, Brandon, but it's time for us to pack up and leave. Papa Bear Hallis is probably rolling in his grave, and I'm sure that J.B. Pritzker is probably too busy at the Golden Corral at the moment. I understand that there is an all-you-can-eat special on bourbon chicken tonight. So Governor Pritzker making sure that his mouth is full as the Bears say goodbye to Chicago. So that's some unfortunate news that we have to share with you today. And I'm sure that there will be lots of reaction over the weekend. X is already exploding with reaction. We have not yet checked what the gubernatorial contender against J.B. Pritzker, what he has said or what his reaction is. But I can only guarantee you, I can easily guarantee you that Darren Bailey is going to seize on this opportunity to call out J.B. Pritzker for his policy failures. He can't even keep an NFL team in his own state, but of course he does have presidential aspirations, so maybe this will just be another bruise on his administration and all the policies that he has in Illinois, driving people out. Okay, we got lots of news we're going to talk about. We got the latest on Iran. We've got the latest on Cuba, the latest on Ebola, the latest on Todd Blanche, the latest on the stolen election in California, and of course the latest on Obamagate. So much news to cover, so little time, but I think it's time for us to go ahead and get started. Tonight's Iran story is not really about one more strike, one more threat, or one more headline. It's about whether the Islamic regime can still play the same game it has played for decades. Survive, stall, drag things out, and wait for America to lose its nerve. But under President Trump, that old scam may finally be failing. Tehran is taking military hits, economic hits, propaganda hits, and now the White House is talking like the endgame's already here. Take the deal, surrender the nuclear dream, or face consequences. And that raises the question the media don't want to ask. What if Iran's clock just ran out? So that's the real stake here. For years, Iran didn't need to beat America head-to-head. It just needed to stay standing long enough for weak Western leaders, timid bureaucrats, and exhausted voters to demand a retreat. Glenn Beck put it plain. Iran's not trying to win the war, it's trying to outlast. Senator Tom Cotton said the same thing in one brutal sentence. Iran has never won a war, but has never lost a negotiation. That was the model under previous administrations: delay, deny, enrich, threaten, regroup, repeat. But the Trump administration is signaling that the model is breaking. U.S. forces hit radar and drone command sites. Tunnel entrances linked to missile launchers were reportedly struck. The naval blockade remains in play, and President Trump's message is crystal clear: no nuclear weapon, not developed, not purchased, not hidden behind clever wording. This is no longer about whether Tehran gets a seat at the table. It's about whether Tehran accepts the terms before the table gets flipped over. While we're talking about pressure, recovery, and what actually works in the real world, let me show you something that got my attention for a very personal reason. Now, you've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson. Talking about people close to them who face serious health struggles and saw dramatic turnarounds, Rogan brought up red light-based therapies and how they work at a cellular level. Gibson said it plain the stuff works, and that hit home for me. In my own life, my wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety, and it wore on everything. And then I started looking into red light therapy and the work shared by Jonathan Otto. The more I saw, the more sense that it made. And if you want to learn more, go to myredlight.com. That's myredlight.com. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Sometimes the smartest move is backing what helps the body fight back. Now back to a regime that's finding out America finally has a president who knows how to apply pressure and keep it on. See, here's the part that changes everything. President Trump's still willing to meet Iran's new leader if it leads to a real deal, so think about that. He's keeping every tool on the table at the same time: military pressure, economic pressure, and direct diplomacy. That's not confusion. That's leverage. And while Iran's top military advisor is threatening to widen the war to the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean, Trump is acting like time is no longer Tehran's friend. See, that's the twist. The regime still thinks it can wait us out. And the White House looks like it believes the waiting game is over. President Trump said that he is willing to meet with the new Iranian leader if it leads to a real deal. This from Trump Daily Post. But Trump made it clear Iran will not get a nuclear weapon by deal or by force. Also, Zelensky is pushing for a direct meeting with Putin, so that is encouraging as well.
I had a chance to talk to the president about this yesterday. I was most curious about the rumored meeting, potential meeting with the new supreme leader, especially because Epic Fury has killed the new supreme leader's dad and his wife and his kids. So does he even want to meet with President Trump if that is something that is on the table? The president said he knows he is probably not the new supreme leader's favorite person.
I don't want to meet, but if I did meet, I'd be honored to meet him. I'd like to see if we make a deal. As far as Iran's concerned, you're going to find out what the deal is. But the main parts of the deal is they can't have a nuclear weapon. We're going to win on paper, or we're going to win military. One way or the other.
And on the front line in Ukraine, look at this, some incredible new video of a Ukrainian drone that got jammed in the air by Russia and floated towards Romania, where it blew up in a port. Ukraine says that they were communicating with Romania to try to avoid casualties. This was the aftermath. And that's as Zelensky is also communicating now with Vladimir Putin. He posted a private letter that he sent to Putin, writing in part, "I am proposing a meeting. We also believe that the United States must be part of this process. This is what could help shape a new security architecture for our part of the world. If you do not personally come to the conclusion that it is time to end this war, Ukraine will continue fighting for its existence. We will have those who support us." The president, who hosted Putin in Alaska last year to talk about this war, is also now talking about this latest letter.
I'm glad that they're maybe talking about meeting. I think we had a lot to do with it. I know exactly what you're doing. But I think it would be great if they met. They should get it done.
And the Russians now say in some bulletins that are crossing that Putin has been briefed about the letter. We don't know if he wants to meet with Zelensky, if he will meet with Zelensky, or if the long-discussed Putin-Zelensky-Trump three-way meeting is now something back on the table.
So Trump made it plain Iran can take a real deal or face force. Now we go to the next step. Overnight, U.S. strikes on Iranian radar and drone sites and Iran's missile response at Kuwait. U.S. forces just hammered Iranian radar and drone command sites overnight. Iran fires back at Kuwait with missiles and drones. Trump says we're close to a killer deal, but no nuclear weapons, not built, not bought, period. Otherwise, we start up with the Department of War. Iran is talking rights while testing us. Trump's not playing games like the last administration.
Overnight, as we await word on a potential peace deal. President Trump weighing in over the weekend on the status of negotiations with Lara Trump on Saturday.
But we're close to a very good deal, and if we can make it good, otherwise we just start up with the Department of War. The one guarantee that I have to have is that there will be no nuclear weapons. They've agreed to that. And it was very interesting. They originally said, we will not develop a nuclear weapon. I said, well, what happens if you buy a nuclear weapon? So now it says we will not develop or in any way purchase a military weapon. That's a big difference.
All right, Trey Yingst, he's got the difference now. He makes the difference in Tel Aviv, and he's live with more. Trey, where are we? Hello.
Yeah, hey, Bill, good morning. U.S. forces conducted multiple strikes on Iranian targets over the weekend. According to Central Command, we understand these strikes went after Iranian radar systems and command and control sites for drones in Gorak, Iran, along the coast and on Keshem Island. CENTCOM described the action as defensive in nature to prevent Iran from attacking international shipping lanes and after Iran shot down a $4 million U.S. drone. The Iranians responded by targeting Kuwait with drones and missiles early this morning. Overnight, President Trump posted to Truth Social saying, in part, Iran really wants to make a deal and it will be a good one for the USA and those that.
So while Trump tightens the screws, the regime keeps talking about his so-called rights. Here's the bigger play. Glenn Beck lays out why Iran's real strategy isn't victory in the battlefield. It's stalling until America loses patience. He says, this is the hard truth. Iran's not trying to win. It's trying to outlast. This has been their plan for decades. We even have the footage of them saying that in the 1990s. Here's a short clip from Glenn Beck today.
It's a question that matters. Iran is losing the shooting war. They are losing the money war. They're losing the PR war badly. Their leadership is decapitated. Their oil is bottled up in the Gulf. Their economy on its knees before the first missile blew. Every conventional measurement shows they've lost. Why are they still standing at the table negotiating? Because Iran is not trying to win this war. Iran is trying to win the clock. It was a leader that was up at the whiteboard drawing out the plan in the 1990s. Here's all we have to do. We just wait. Because our advantage is that our enemies, the superpowers, are looking to shorten their time. Shortening is for several reasons. One is because of the economic cost. Americans taking action in far-off areas is very high. And another one of them is the casualties are not acceptable. Not acceptable. They seek quick victories. And one of the advantages is they create political tension within their countries. That's through this work, presidents are going to be changed in general domestic political structures, become tense due to the prolonging of the war. Okay, so in the 1990s, what are they saying here? We watched them in Vietnam. We watched them in Iraq. This is before Iraq. But look at what they've learned since watching us in Afghanistan, where we spent 20 years, trillions of dollars, and then walked away. They learned the one lesson that everyone on earth learned about America after Vietnam. And I want you to hear it because it is the master key to this entire thing. America has never lost a war it actually fought. We only lose the wars we get tired of.
So that's the heart of the stall game. Drag it out, drive up the costs, and hope Washington cracks. Next, a new report says Trump believes he's close because Iran may let U.S. officials in to collect leftover uranium with no cash payoff. Treason unraveling in real time. Well, it's not the mother of all coincidence. What if the uranium that Hillary Clinton sold to Russia while she was Secretary of State somehow ended up in Iran's nuclear stockpile right after Obama shipped them plane loads of cash? That's a great question. The Obama legacy is cracking wide open.
Just got on Air Force One for a quick trip to Arizona for an event that we'll see later on today. He didn't take any questions, but he just told CBS News. He basically explained why it is that he is so confident a deal is about to be closed with the Iranians. He says that they have agreed to let United States, not troops, just somebody from the United States, go in to Iran with some Iranian officials to collect leftover uranium, what he calls the nuclear dust, and then bring it back somewhere to the United States. That has been the key to all of this. The president earlier today disputed a report in Axios that the U.S. might unfreeze $20 billion in Iranian money in exchange for getting them to fork over all this uranium. He says not a dollar will be exchanged in any way. So we will definitely hear more about this once he gets to Arizona. But there's a lot happening, and it is possible.
So if that uranium comes out under American supervision, Tehran loses one of its last pressure points, and the pressure is already visible on the ground with new footage showing rescue crews at tunnel entrances in Iran reportedly hit to trap missile launchers inside. Take a look at some of this footage released after Iran lifted its internet blackout. Shows rescue crews near tunnel entrances in western Iran struck by U.S. and Israeli forces. See it right there? Say hello to my little friend, right? So the tunnel strikes show the regime is feeling the heat. Not controlling the board. Next, Senator Tom Cotton delivers the warning in plain English. Iran may never win wars, but it plays negotiations like a racket. And the U.S. military is ready to finish the job.
Well, as he said, Hugh, what we've done so far, and Marco Rubio testified to this yesterday as well, is defensive actions. Now, it's not merely defensive. We're not going to let our troops sit in a defensive crouch. So if they hit us or they hit our friends like they did in Kuwait, we're going to hit back twice as hard. But that's not like what we were doing in March. The president has said that he's willing to keep the blockade in place and keep the economic pressure on Iran. Time is not on their side, but as we keep the blockade in place and keep the pressure on them, we're certainly not going to let our troops or our friends in the region just be like sitting ducks in a defensive crouch and only shooting back in some measured terms. As President Trump usually does, he's going to hit back twice as hard.
So are you optimistic that smother them with the blockade, a pillow over their economic head, are you optimistic that will work in changing the behavior of the regime, bringing freedom to the Iranian people, stopping the support for the proxies and the missile program?
Not really, Hugh. As Donald Trump himself once said, the Iranians have never won a war, but they've never lost a negotiation. I understand his reasons and his concerns about a new round of strikes. And some of our Arab friends in the region are worried too. But in the end, that blockade is going to have to remain in place to keep the pressure on until someone in Tehran comes to the senses. Or we should just make a decision to finish this all and start strikes again and win the war fast. And we can win the war fast, Hugh. You know, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks maybe worth of strikes against critical targets left in Iran to make sure that we finish the job, that we keep the blockade in place, that we open the strait so we can get oil and fertilizer and other goods out, and then go about our daily lives.
So Cotton's message is simple. Keep the blockade, keep the pressure, hit back harder. If Tehran keeps pushing, then you'll see the panic for yourself. Iranian state TV getting rocked on air as the regime's propaganda machine suddenly isn't so untouchable. This clip says it all. Iranian state media frames the attacks as an assault on the voice of truth, then bombs detonate in the studio as someone shouts, "God is the greatest," and orders them to evacuate. The regime keeps pretending it's untouchable, but it's not.
Everything that you have just heard here, now that truly terrible sound of the invader of our precious, sacred homeland, is nothing less than the sound of the invader who is constantly trying to silence the very voice of truth itself. What you have just witnessed unfolding before your very eyes right here, and the sound you just heard, and indeed the dust God
is the greatest. I'm telling you that you need to come out of there right this very second. Get out of there immediately, truly. God is the greatest. God is the greatest.
Yeah, so that live studio chaos was the clearest sign yet that the mullahs are rattled, but instead of backing down, a top Iranian military advisor goes on CNN threatening to widen the war to the Indian Ocean and beyond.
Money. Wouldn't a war be catastrophic for Iran as well, though, if it was a big bombing campaign?
If the war continues and the naval blockade is not lifted, we will drag the war to the Indian Ocean, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean, and we will give another dimension to the war by attacking these other American bases that we have been attacking so far. America will definitely suffer much more losses. America's losses will be very heavy.
Final question, what's your message to Donald Trump?
Mr. Trump must make decisions.
Yeah, good luck with that idea. Not sure it was a wise decision to telegraph that. So what does it all really mean? It means the conflict has entered a war of political will, not just missiles and maps. Iran's rulers still think America will blink first. They think sanctions fatigue will kick in, energy prices will spook voters, and some future softer administration will rescue them with another disastrous deal. But Trump's position is the opposite. Your leverage is gone, your facilities are damaged, your command structure is under pressure, your propaganda machine is getting embarrassed on live television, and your path forward is narrowing by the day. That's why his offer to meet is so powerful. It's not a concession, it's a final test. Accept reality, hand over the uranium, and end the nuclear game, or find out what happens when America refuses to quit. So the establishment hates moments like this because they expose how the fake old foreign policy class really was. They told us endless concessions were sophistication. They told us the pallets of cash and paper promises were peace. They told us Iran could be managed. President Trump is proving something much simpler and much stronger, that peace comes from unmistakable strength, clear terms, and a commander-in-chief who means what he says. Iran can threaten shipping lanes, it can rattle sabers, it can try to drag this out, but if the regime's whole strategy depends on America losing heart, then it has a serious problem. This is not the former Biden era anymore. This is the Trump administration, and the message is deal or defeat. If you agree that Iran must never get a nuclear weapon, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your answer below. Yes or no, has President Trump finally broken Iran's waiting game? Let's have a conversation. But most importantly, I want you to text the 2 words you see on your screen right there, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. That's how we stay connected with you when the algorithm thinks that you don't deserve to get the notifications. I'm going to send notifications directly to you. Make sure you get the news that you deserve so you can make informed decisions for yourself and your family. And let's celebrate together. America 250 right around the corner. Yes, summer is just here. July 4th is coming quickly, so make sure you are geared up and ready to celebrate. Celebrate with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video. All right, moving right along. We got some more news to get to. I need to see something here. There was a clip that I wanted to present in that last report, and I thought that it was included. Perhaps I forgot to add it. I certainly did. My bad. Well, maybe I can present it to you just between segments here. I think I can try to do that. Let me see if I can track it down. Okay. Let's go to next news on X. Real quick for you here. Oh, hey, look, we're live. Live between the headlines, right on. Good to see it. Okay, we got some shorts coming in here. We got the news on the Bears. Where is? Here's the post. This is okay. So I'm sorry. This has got to be in the next. This is in our Cuba story. Okay. For some reason, I thought he was talking about Iran, but no. This will be in our Cuban story, I believe. If not, I'll have to bring it up for you. Let me just check to make sure that we... yes, we do have it here. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row for you. Because when you have Cuba and you have now Russia weighing in on the Cuban conversation, that's when things start to get very interesting. Okay, so Brian, let's move along into our next report here. Looks like you may have already got, did you already get our White House report published? Looks like it's already out on all platforms. You have it out at 5:30. Okay, you got it out at 5. Okay, perfect. I understand. Okay, so let's see if we can get this next one, we can get it out maybe at... If you got that at 5, we'll get this one at, how about 6 o'clock, the Iran story? Yeah, let's do that. I'll set it up. Today's Friday. I'm not sure what happened yesterday. Some of those reports were mistimed. It was Kind of strange. Not sure if that was me or if it was the system making decisions for us, but either way, we'll just kind of keep an eye on that, make sure that everything gets out in a timely fashion for our viewers. So let's get into our next report here. We need to talk about what's going on in Cuba because we're getting ever closer to that invasion. Tonight, the Cuba story just crossed a line the media can't ignore. It's no longer just about sanctions, shortages, or another communist regime limping along on fumes. The Trump administration is now speaking in a completely different tone. Not containment, not patience, not excuses for Havana's failures, but reform, freedom, and what comes after the regime. And that is a massive development, and even Russia's foreign minister is openly warning that something bigger may be coming. President Trump just dropped comments that sent shockwaves through Miami, Havana, and Washington. And the question is no longer whether Cuba is collapsing. The question is what happens next. And here's why this matters. You see, so much it matters for the United States because Cuba is not some distant problem tucked away on the other side of the world. It's 90 miles from Florida, 90 miles. That means regime collapse, mass migration, organized crime, foreign influence, and regional instability are not abstract talking points. They are direct national security concerns for American families and American communities. And the Trump administration is finally talking like adults about it. Ambassador Tammy Bruce made it clear everything President Trump does is based on U.S. national security, whether it's the Middle East or Cuba sitting right off our coast. The U.S. message at the United Nations is just as direct. Open the economy, free political prisoners, stop treating citizens like enemies, and stop blaming America for the misery caused by Havana's failed system. That is not routine diplomatic language. That is the language of transformation. Add in blackouts, garbage piling in the streets, new protests in Havana, and horrifying reports of tortured political prisoners, and one truth becomes impossible to deny. The communist model in Cuba is not merely failing, it is collapsing in plain sight, and aircraft carrier groups are sitting right off the coast, waiting for the order. Now, before we go further, pay attention to this because for a lot of American families, getting the right information matters just as much as home as it does abroad. So if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never review it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it. Chapter is simple by design, one call, one advisor, and they do the work for you. They check your doctors, your prescriptions, your priorities, then help you compare plans that actually fit. Some folks could save as much as $1,100 a year, so do not guess. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109. That's the number you see right there on your screen. And get real help from somebody who knows exactly what to look for today. Now back to Cuba, because the people suffering under this regime deserve clarity too. And President Trump's making clear that America finally has it. And here's the part that does change everything. See, this is no longer just about punishing Havana. It's about openly discussing a post-regime future. Think about how fast that conversation has moved. A few months ago, the debate was whether Cuba was under pressure. Now people are talking about reopening the economy, freeing prisoners, rebuilding tourism, and letting families return and invest. Even foreign hotel operators are pulling out as Trump sanctions squeeze the regime's military-run cash machine. The system is being isolated. The failure is visible. And the next phase is suddenly being discussed out loud. So President Trump dropping a bombshell from the Oval Office on Cuba. Says 95% of Cubans voted for him, and he's not forgetting them. The next stop after Iran, as I've been telling you, is Cuba. And here's President Trump.
Of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as soon as that's done on our way back, we'll just make a little brief stop off. We'll take care of it. We want to help them out. Look, we have a lot of people that voted for Trump. Whether they did or not, it didn't matter. But I had 95% of the Cubans voted for me. They're unbelievable people. They're energetic. They're entrepreneurial. You know, some of the richest people in Miami are Cuban. They're unbelievable. And I'm going to take good care of them. I'm going to let them go back to their land. They want to be back with family. You know, they have a lot of family over there. They've been treated very badly by Cuba. But we're going to treat Cuba well, and we're going to let our people go back and let them invest in Cuba if they'd like. So we have some very good plans for Cuba. I think, you know, we have to get rid of the regime was very tough, very nasty. The difference is now they don't have money coming in. They had a lot of money coming in from Venezuela. They don't have any money coming. They had oil coming in. They had money coming in. But we're going to take care of Cuba.
Mr. President, sir. Mr. President.
And they, you know what? They want us to. The people want us there so bad.
Mr. President, sir.
So note what he said there. After Iran, we're going to make a quick stopover in Cuba. I've been warning about this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the conversation is now finally being confirmed from the Oval Office. What President Trump is waiting for is the Iran deal to close. And that may be one reason why Iran is trying to run out the clock, because their allies in Cuba are next on the chessboard to be knocked off the table. So we're going to watch and see how this plays out. So much more to get to, because Trump making it plain the Castro machine is running out of cash, oil, and excuses. Now Mike Waltz takes that message to the UN with a blunt list of demands for Havana. Here is the ambassador, Mike Waltz.
Colleagues, the Cuban regime must make immediate economic and political reforms. We are asking very simple things. Open the economy. Free political prisoners. Stop treating private citizens as a threat. Stop blaming America for the misery produced by Havana and their failed policies.
So Walz laying out the reform, open the economy, free political prisoners, quit blaming America. Next, the pressure swings stateside, where Treasury is reportedly digging into Hassan Piker in Code Pink over that little Cuban propaganda trip. It is official. They are investigating. Piker is cooked. His traitorous activities are coming back around. Listen to this.
The department is now investigating Piker and Code Pink, who hosted his trip to Cuba. The feds are looking at funding for the trip, which some think is tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Also under scrutiny, American businessman and social activist Neville Roy Singham, who has donated to Code Pink in the past and has alleged ties to China through his business dealings. The investigation is looking at his trip, which involved as many as 40 American citizens who joined what is being called a Marxist convoy to Havana. The Trump administration wants to know if Piker and Code Pink violated U.S. laws and sanctions in support of Cuba's communist government. For now, nobody has been charged.
People have a right to be stupid and support socialism, okay? Despite all the things that you and I might say against that. What they don't have a right to is receive payment, and that is what the feds are investigating now. They haven't been charged with a crime. They're just checking if they have received any payment for the propaganda.
Piker says he has not yet received a subpoena from the U.S. government yet. Jillian?
All right, Lucas Tomlinson.
So the investigation is underway, not just Havana. Activists carrying water for the regime also. And now Trump team makes clear that this is about U.S. national security just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. This is the U.S. mission to the United Nations. Here we have Ambassador Tammy Bruce on Varney and Company discussing it.
I can tell you that with what President Trump wants to do, and he's very transparent about his interests for U.S. national security. The globe kind of gets smaller and smaller. Everything he does is based on what is best for U.S. national security, whether it's in the Middle East or, of course, extremely close to home, 90 miles off the coast of Florida with Cuba. The Cuban people also deserve to be free. Secretary Rubio put this out on Twitter just a day ago. We will no longer tolerate radical Marxist regimes in our hemisphere seeking to threaten U.S. national security. So we have leadership now that can state what we want and can implement it. We know the Cuban people want freedom. They deserve to be free. We, when it comes to humanitarian aid, have $100 million waiting to be able to make a difference for Cuba. But the reality reality is that things like this can only occur when you've got leadership that can define it, be willing to implement it. And I think that everything, as we've seen with President Trump, is possible, including freedom. We have a few years, and in that time, we've learned that the world can change for the better. And that's the message that I think the Cuban people are hearing as well.
So the message is clear. That's the argument from Trump's UN team, freedom for Cubans and no more Marxist threats in our hemisphere. After that serious warning, one post shows what a post-regime Havana could look like with a Trump-branded twist. So what's it going to look like to book a room at the first Trump Havana hotel? You know, it's not far-fetched. That might be quite the place. Have you ever stayed at a Trump property? They certainly are the best. But the fantasy image says a lot about the opportunity sitting on the island once the communists are gone. But right now the regime's cash machine is breaking down as the military-run Gaisa scrambles while hotel chains head for the exits. Cuba defends military-run Gaisa as hotel chains exit. News Force reports foreign tourism operators are pulling out after renewed sanctions increase pressure on the sector.
Cuba's government is defending its powerful military-run conglomerate, Gaesa, after renewed U.S. sanctions have triggered a wave of foreign hotel companies pulling out of the country's tourism sector, escalating tensions over control of one of the island's most important sources of revenue. Officials in Havana argue that Gaesa plays a central role in Cuba's economic and social structure and say accusations of corruption and hidden profits are part of a broader U.S. effort to tighten pressure on the island through sanctions and an informal blockade on key resources, including fuel and investment. Washington, however, has intensified restrictions under the Trump administration, targeting not just Cuban entities, but also foreign firms operating in sectors tied to the state-linked conglomerate. The move has created immediate uncertainty for international companies with exposure to Cuba's tourism industry. As a result, several major hotel operators have begun severing ties or withdrawing from the islands entirely.
So while Havana dreams up excuses, foreign operators are walking away from the tourism racket. It's taking hits. Next, viewers get the street-level reality. Trash piling up across the capital as basic services keep collapsing. Mariana Falls posting, Cuba's trash collection has completely collapsed. Piles of garbage rotting on sidewalks, sparking serious sanitary problems for everyday Cubans. The energy squeeze from U.S. sanctions is hitting every part of life, and now it's literally piling up in the streets.
These piles of trash in almost every corner of Havana is just yet another issue Cubans have had to endure since early this year when the United States imposed an oil blockade on the island. Without fuel, trucks cannot make collections regularly. Waste disposal has always been a problem in Cuba that does not have a recycling policy. But recent hardships drove people to rummage through the garbage, looking for cans or other recyclables to make a few pesos. It is a serious sanitary and health issue that Cubans are having to face on top of long hours without electricity, no water, no transportation, and none of the essentials for a normal life.
So that's what communist failure looks like. In real time, garbage in the streets because the regime can't keep the lights on or the trucks moving. Rick Scott follows the human cost Democrats never want to talk about. A political prisoner starved and tortured by Havana.
This is not somebody from World War II. This is somebody that in this year, okay, this is a picture from this year in Cuba. So when Democrats go down there and campaign for the regime, they're campaigning to do this to a human being. Alexander Diaz-Rodriguez is, I think, 45 years old. Look how old he looks in this. You know why? He was starved. He was tortured. He has cancer. They didn't give him treatment. That's the face of the Cuban regime.
After seeing the prison horror, Trump's point lands even harder. This is not some romantic socialist experiment. It's a failed state run by thugs. Next, the president doubles down on getting rid of the nasty regime, says they're out of money.
No, we just want them to be a nicely run country that can feed its people. Look, it's a failed nation. Without Venezuela, Venezuela, because it has such wealth in the ground, mostly in the ground, but Venezuela took care of them for years, and they took care of Venezuela. They were like the bodyguards. When we went in and burst into their country, the Venezuelans were guarding Maduro and everybody else. It was mostly, the soldiers were, in that case, we had a lot of Cubans were guarding. The Cubans were the guards, and they're good soldiers. But the country is starving, and it's got no energy, it's got no oil, it's got no money, it's got nothing. It's got a beautiful piece of land. You could have beautiful resorts, doesn't have oil, but Venezuela was giving them the money to survive, and now, the money is, I guess you could say, is coming to us and is going to Venezuela. Venezuela's been an amazing thing because we've paid for the cost of the attack many, many times over, and it's been a long time since you've heard.
Do you think Cuba is close to collapsing, though, based on everything you just laid out? Do you think that Cuba is close to collapsing?
It sort of collapsed, and we're going to handle that as soon as we've finished. I like to do one thing at a time, and we'll take care of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as soon as that's done, on our way back, we'll just make a little brief stop off.
Mr. President.
We'll take care of it. We want to help them out. Look, we have a lot of people that voted for Trump. Whether they did or not, it didn't matter. But
So Trump says the regime's weak, broken, ripe for removal. Now we go from the Oval to the streets, where new protests in Havana show Cubans themselves are reaching a breaking point. It's 11:50 in the morning in Germany, and yesterday there were protests in Cuba again. They protested in the middle of Havana. People are spending their entire days without electricity, gas, or water. Situation unsustainable, and summer is approaching. Another explosion is coming. So the protests fueled by the same shortages we just heard about. No power, no gas, no water. Next video shows the blackout misery for itself. Darkness across Cuba, with one hotel glowing while everybody else sits dark.
So this is Cuba, and there is no electricity anywhere because there's no oil, there's no energy. And this is what it looks like. Except that hotel, because it's a 5-star hotel. That's it. Everybody else is in the dark.
Everybody else is in the dark. The image is brutal. Ordinary Cubans in blackout while the regime protects the tourist bubble. Now even Moscow sounding nervous, with Lavrov warning that clouds are gathering over Cuba. He says Washington may make a very dangerous move before November's midterms.
Clouds gather over Cuba. The Americans are also actively reflecting upon this particular issue. I would not rule out the possibility that before the midterm congressional elections this November, we might see yet another series of highly dangerous and provocative political moves coming out of the Capitol in Washington in an attempt to prove the overall success of the current Republican administration's strategic actions. That will be unfortunate.
So the MAGA doctrine on full display. Russia is now officially taking notice. So this is the real meaning of President Trump's remarks. When he says Cuba's collapsed, when he says the regime is nasty and has to go, when his administration demands political and economic reform, this is not random rhetoric. It's a doctrine. It's the MAGA doctrine. And Cuba is being treated as a security problem, a humanitarian disaster, and a strategic opportunity all at once. And that's why the left is nervous. They prefer the old game, endless excuses, selective outrage, and photo ops with communists, while real Cubans starved in the dark. Trump is flipping that script. Pressure is no longer the destination. Pressure is the tool. The destination is a free Cuba, open to enterprise, family reunification, investment, and American influence instead of Marxist decay and foreign manipulation. So let's just say it plainly, shall we? What we're watching is the collapse of a failed communist regime just off America's shoreline. And for the first time in a long time, Washington is no longer pretending that minor tweaks will fix it. The Trump administration is signaling that the problem is the system itself, and that is exactly why Democrats, regime apologists, and their activist cheerleaders are panicking. They know the truth is getting harder to hide. Cubans are protesting, the lights are going out, the garbage is stacking up, political prisoners are being brutalized, the money's drying up. And President Trump's making clear that America will not look away while the Marxist wreck festers 90 miles from Florida. If you believe that Cuba deserves freedom and communism deserves the ash heap of history, share this video and leave a comment and subscribe to the Next News Network. And here's the yes or no question. Should the Trump administration keep increasing pressure until the Cuban regime finally falls? Let's have a conversation, and most importantly, see those numbers on your screen right there? See the words raw feed? See, I made this little system because I kept reading your comments and people complaining that they could never find us when they look for us on YouTube, and complaining that they never get notifications. See, you guys hit subscribe, you hit the notification bell, but something happens, and for some reason the YouTube overlords decide that you're just not good enough to handle the truth, right? Or they just are too afraid of it. So that's why thousands of patriots have already signed up to get the truth that they demand. They get it directly from me. We're cutting out the middleman. And that's how you can stay connected. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963 and celebrate America 250 with the Next News Network. Yes, it is time to celebrate our great republic. 250 years. Check out the merch shelf below this video and find something you like and celebrate with us. Okay, more news to get to. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Between the Headlines right here on Next News on X in partnership with Trump Daily Posts. We're glad to be partnering with that X account. Make sure you give them a follow. They're always right on top of all of the latest from President Trump's Truth Social posts, as well as other things that are happening in the Trump universe, the MAGA universe. They have over 3 million followers on that account. An impressive number, actually. And, of course, on our YouTube, check us out there. We've got 2.25 million followers there, as well as we've reached over 2 billion published views on that YouTube channel where we're streaming currently right now. Sadly, though, we did have to delete 1 billion of them so that we could, get into compliance with the YouTube overlords back in the 2023 when they tried to kneecap us just before the presidential election. Why? Because we were just so damn effective in 2016. Oh, yeah. Anyway, we got more news to get to. We've got to talk about what's going on, the latest with the NIH-linked Ebola expert that was caught at the U.S. airport. The arrest has been made official. And more news on the Ebola front. So let's get into it. Tonight, the Ebola story just exploded past the usual case counts and death toll graphics, because now it's not only about a virus in Central Africa. It's about whether the public can trust the same institutions that got so much wrong during COVID, funded dangerous gain-of-function work, and still expect blind obedience. An NIH-linked Ebola expert is under FBI scrutiny after allegedly bringing undeclared pathogen samples through a U.S. airport. Yes, he's been arrested, and at the same time, Washington is pouring massive resources into containment, and the World Health Organization facing open resistance on the ground. So here's the question Americans are asking tonight. Is this only an outbreak story, or is it a biosafety and trust story too? See, that's the heart of the story, and it matters because post-COVID America does not hear words like outbreak, vaccine, World Health Organization, PCR testing, and emergency response the way it did 6 years ago. People now immediately ask, who funded what? Who knew when? Who benefits? And are we being told the whole truth? See, those questions didn't come out of nowhere. They came from years of censorship, shifting narratives, and elite arrogance from the former Biden administration's public health machine and its media allies. Now, President Trump's administration is trying to contain a real overseas threat while also navigating a public that no longer gives global health bureaucrats the benefit of the doubt. That changes everything. It changes how every CDC move is received, how every funding announcement is interpreted, and how every new vaccine headline lands. When you add in reports about gain-of-function labs, Congo-linked pathogen handling, and fresh federal money flowing into Ebola response programs, this stops being a narrow medical update and becomes a national trust test, with American security, transparency, and credibility all on the line. And in moments like this, when uncertainty is everywhere and institutions keep asking for more trust than they've earned, smart Americans start thinking seriously about real-world protection. And that's why I want to tell you about Noble Gold Investments. If you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who saw oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history, and today a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing base that powers modern life. So go to nextnewsgold.com right now, and you could receive a 1/10 ounce gold coin with a qualifying investment. That's nextnewsgold.com before the crowd catches on. Now back to the story, because what happened next is exactly why Americans are demanding answers instead of slogans. Now here's the twist that changed the entire environment. Even if the outbreak itself is real and serious, the public is no longer separating response from origin, and origin from research. That wall is gone. When an NIH virologist tied to Congo Ebola fieldwork gets investigated and arrested over undeclared biological samples, and Tulsi Gabbard confirms U.S.-funded gain-of-function programs around the world have been linked to major health crises, people connect the dots instantly. Then add vaccine money, border screening, quarantine talk, and World Health Organization messaging, and the question becomes unavoidable. Can the managers of the response actually be trusted? Now, this post caught my attention. The Ebola scam, it's another plandemic.
To all of you, the hentai virus is now out of the news cycle. They've now replaced it with the deadly Ebola outbreak in the Congo. But thankfully, the people are not having it.
Currently, I am in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for a couple months, okay? And there's no Ebola here. Everyone is living the best life. No one is panicking.
Mining gold is one of the top businesses over there, and it releases high levels of arsenic, which leads to arsenic poisoning, and arsenic poisoning and Ebola have the same symptoms. And again, they're using the same fraudulent PCR test to see if you have it. Even Tedros from the WHO came in for a photo op. This guy claims it's so deadly, but he walks around with no protective gear. Same with CNN. And guess what? Moderna just landed a $50 million funding to create an Ebola mRNA vaccine. And the funding came from CEPI, which is bankrolled by the Gates Foundation. You can't make this up. So the question becomes, why the Congo? This country sits on top of almost $500 billion worth of gold. And as war expands, gold takes value. Congo also leads the world in lithium, copper, and cobalt. Exactly what you need to build these electric cars and data centers. There's no coincidences here. You poison the people or use something that's already there, you build a narrative to control the area, and you drain the resources. So just like every other plandemic, this story needs to stay where it belongs.
So you heard the claim. Ebola push is being used to sell shots and control a resource-rich region. Now look at the money trail. Officials are openly talking about hundreds of millions for screening, testing, tracing, and containment. United States ramping up Ebola response as outbreak continues to grow. The U.S. says it's mobilizing medical, humanitarian, and operational resources to help contain the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa. According to officials, hundreds of millions of dollars have been committed towards border screening, testing, contact tracing, protective equipment, and support for affected countries.
I think importantly here is the broader response, and that's only one part of this response, including $13.5 million working with Kenya on their Ebola response, $162 million going to DRC and other countries in the affected area to address Ebola, including PPE, including contact tracing, including the ability to test and diagnose, border screening. And that is on top of $350 million that's been mobilized through OCHA, a pooled fund that allows us to address high priority needs. The United States is taking this incredibly seriously. The highest priority here is stopping the spread, keeping it from coming to our shores.
Keeping it out of the United States.
So the Feds say it's all about stopping Ebola before it reaches America, but Tulsi Gabbard takes the story somewhere darker, confirming U.S.-funded biolabs overseas were tied to dangerous gain-of-function research. This is when Gabbard confirmed the U.S. government is funding gain-of-function biolabs around the world, many of which are specifically linked to outbreaks around the world. This is what Tulsi admitted.
The thing that we are working with Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH director, on with, as well as Secretary Kennedy, is looking at the gain-of-function research that, in the case of the Wuhan lab, as well as many of these other biolabs around the world, was actually U.S. funded and leads to this dangerous kind of research that, in many examples, has resulted in either a pandemic or some other major health crisis.
Well, let me ask you specifically, because we already know that EcoHealth Alliance was partnering with this Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research.
That's right.
We just have never been able to have somebody say, it was that exact experiment that led to this COVID bug. But have we gotten there? What's the new thing that you're digging in on?
We are working on that with Jay Bhattacharya and look forward to being able to share that, hopefully very soon.
Okay.
That specific
link.
Correct, between the gain-of-function research and what we saw with COVID-19.
I mean, that.
So, continuing here, Tulsi putting the U.S.-backed biolabs and outbreak-linked research right on the table. Next story gets more concrete. An NIH-linked Ebola expert is accused of bringing undeclared biological samples through a U.S. airport after working in the Congo. We've been tracking this.
Maybe a possibility he could have had Ebola samples with him. What's going on with this story, Nicholas?
Yeah, this is another shocking story. So an NIH virologist, an Ebola expert, he literally goes in the Congo often. He has field sites in the Congo to catch Ebola from wild animals. And so he was caught at a U.S. airport earlier this year with undeclared biological samples, what are called select agents that appear to be, we know for sure, monkeypox, but as well, there could be other pathogens. There could be Ebola because we know he works with Ebola. He was caught at the airport. Now he's under administrative leave. The FBI is reportedly investigating him. And this man, Vincent Munster, was linked, or actually was actively involved in gain-of-function activities with SARS-CoV-2, with Fauci and colleagues. So you can't even make this up.
Of course, we do now know that he was, in fact, arrested. As the airport bus raises the question, every American should be asking, how deep does the NIH connection go? The next clip goes back to the post-Ebola years when gain-of-function was supposedly paused and Fauci's network was accused of shifting that work towards Wuhan. After Ebola, gain-of-function research was paused, so Fauci partnered with the Wuhan to conduct gain-of-function research there.
After the Ebola outbreak in 2014, there was a ban on gain-of-function research. But many people think that that ban was violated and that they did even more gain-of-function research at Wuhan. David Asher was at the State Department during the pandemic. When he began investigating the origin, he found all these crazy connections between the NIH and the Wuhan lab.
In 2015, the Wuhan Institute of Virology has launched a global recruitment plan of principal investigators under the Outstanding Foreign Talents Program, quote unquote, of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And the NIH is actually helping match scientists to the Chinese program to recruit our most sensitive biologists.
This was going to be China's first BSL-4 laboratory, which is the highest level of security.
Those are the ones where everybody has the full suit and the respirator.
The Chinese had partnered with the French to build this lab and then kicked them out the day it was finished.
Convenient, right? So the trail from Ebola-era research freeze to Wuhan links now widen the frame because the next lays out the playbook. Tom Elliott points out this is the WHO, WEF, UN strategy. Make a vaccine. Have a pandemic simulation, get the media on board, pay off the politicians, use fear propaganda, utilize gain of function, say there's an outbreak, pharmaceutical liars step up and tell everyone they'll die. So the alleged playbook is one thing, but the next report shows the real-world backlash with protests in Kenya turning deadly over plans tied to an Ebola facility for Americans. This is CBS News.
After this outrage in Kenya, in which 2 people were killed protesting a Trump administration plan to set up an Ebola facility only for Americans at a military airbase, Secretary of State Marco Rubio now says that there has been a misunderstanding. And that's about whether Americans would only be observed for symptoms if they've been potentially exposed in the region, or if positive, whether they would be quarantined and then treated for the longer term.
We're not actually asking Kenya to set up treatment for Americans. I think the one that's been very controversial is a misunderstanding. There is a facility that the Kenyans are allowing us to open. If there are any Americans that are exposed, potentially exposed, they will be transferred to this facility for observation.
And he said that they would now be removed from Kenya, now to either Europe or the United States, to be treated. Notably, he did not say the facility was entirely off the table, and Flight Radar has been tracking U.S. military flights flying towards an airbase about 125 miles north of Nairobi. That airbase is called Laikipia. This was before a Kenya High Court judge blocked the facility, at least temporarily, but also after that judge blocked the facility. After those protests broke out on June 1st, Kenya's Prime Minister William Ruto said that it would be good for the country's own Ebola preparedness, and said that the U.S. and Kenya have had a friendship for the past 30 to 40 years. But many Kenyans feel that this is the Trump administration outsourcing American health risks to their own home country. And a high-level medical contact of mine in Nairobi told me that the expectation is that this U.S. facility will go ahead, regardless of what any high court says.
So that's CBS News. Kenyan protesters are calling this what it looks like to them, dumping American problems somewhere else. The next clip shows the chaos spreading inside the region, too, with Ebola burial teams in Congo being attacked on the ground. Congo Ebola responders now being attacked while trying to bury the dead. 2 burial teams were assaulted on Monday. One in South Kivu was forced to abandon a coffin mid-burial. Another in Ituri, where 4 workers were injured at a cemetery. There have been 363 confirmed cases and 62 deaths.
The World Health Organization is stepping up its response to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, bringing much-needed supplies to the front lines of the health emergency this week. It comes amid multiple attacks by residents on Ebola response teams. The country's health ministry said residents attacked an Ebola burial team in the South Kivu province this week, forcing respondents to abandon a coffin in the town of Katana and raising fears of further transmission. The assault targeted specialized responders trained to handle highly infectious bodies under strict protocols to prevent contagion. Officials said the body was subsequently handled by members of the community, a high-risk practice that can fuel new chains of infection. They did not specify what triggered the attack. The incident underscores the mistrust and resistance that continues to hamper response efforts. Congo has recorded over 360 confirmed Ebola cases and at least 62 deaths since the latest outbreak was declared on May 15th, according to health ministry data. More than a dozen cases have also been reported in neighboring Uganda. In Kenya, President William Ruto defended his government's decision to allow the United States to set up an Ebola quarantine facility at an Air Force base.
The debate is, are we doing the right thing? Are we not? And I can tell you without fear of any contradiction, and I can look at everybody in the eye, Kenyan, including yourself, and tell you we are doing the right thing.
At least 2 people were killed earlier this week in protests in the central Kenyan town of Nanyuki, where the facility is being built. The 50-bed unit is being constructed for Americans who might be exposed to the virus. Flight data and officials say the U.S. government is continuing to build the Ebola quarantine facility despite the protests and Kenyan court orders blocking the construction.
So you saw the responders under attack, public anger boiling over. Next comes the key reason the World Health Organization keeps running into a wall. Many locals in Congo flat out do not even believe the Ebola story that they're being sold. Jamie Andrews says the World Health Organization having a hard time convincing locals in the Democratic Republic of Congo that Ebola exists.
Community mistrust is a serious barrier. Some community leaders told me that they believe Ebola is not real. Building trust with the communities is therefore critical to bringing the outbreak under control. There is active armed conflict in that province. Many armed groups operate in that province. And the instability, the insecurity, I think impacts the detection and the response as well.
We have to start to think about talking with the indigenous people. One of the delicacies is the wild animals, the fruit beds. So how can we start the process of discussing with them how to handle these things, how to handle the animals and the beds?
So the mistrust is crippling the response on the ground. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is projecting confidence. Next clip shows the official message from Washington about containing Ebola and protecting Americans. The Department of War Rapid Response Team says the Department of War is proud to stand with our joint interagency partners to ensure that the spread of Ebola is contained and Americans at risk have access to treatment. So that's the bureaucracy's line. Coordinated agencies control response mission underway. Next, the White House adds its own stamp, pushing Jay Bhattacharya's defense of CDC measures as targeted and justified. The White House posting, unlike the COVID response, the CDC's measures are scientifically justified and tailored to containment. So the administration is now insisting this response is nothing like the COVID disaster, but Laura Loomer is not buying it. She's about to point to State Department funding, travel concerns, and her warning that Ebola is already here. She says, I've been warning about Ebola lockdown in the U.S. since 2021, and she is quote tweeting her tweet from 2023. She says, I hope you're all ready for it soon to be announced that Ebola is in the United States. It will likely be announced between now and the week or two after the upcoming World Cup in the U.S., which is in 14 days, June 11th, 2026. How many Africans will be traveling to the U.S. for the World Cup? Too many. Today, the U.S. State Department quietly announced they're allocating another $80 million towards the Ebola response. With this new $80 million commitment, the State Department has mobilized more than $112 million in bilateral foreign assistance for the Ebola response in less than 2 weeks. And there's a reason, she says. It's coming to America, and they'll need at least to show that they tried to stop it. But the thing is, Ebola is already here. As I've been reporting for the last 2.5 weeks, you'll see, bookmark this tweet. So, Laura Loomer says it's already here. So what this really means is simple. The Trump administration is right to protect Americans, secure borders, and act early, but the old public health priesthood no longer gets automatic credibility. Jay Bhattacharya is exactly right to draw a line between scientifically justified containment and the failed COVID-era panic model. That distinction matters because Americans support real protection. What they reject is secrecy, profiteering, manipulated science, and globalist institutions lecturing them after years of being wrong. The Congo outbreak may be one story, but the deeper story is that every outbreak now passes through a trust filter shaped by gain-of-function scandals, pathogen security failures, and broken institutions. If federal agencies want cooperation, they need transparency. If international bodies want compliance, they need honesty. And if there are biosafety failures anywhere in this chain, they must be exposed completely. So keep your eyes on the timeline. The funding, the research links, and the people insisting that you stop asking questions. That's always where the real story lives. President Trump's team has a duty to protect the homeland from any Ebola spread, and Americans absolutely want that done. But protecting the homeland also means cleaning house, demanding accountability, and never letting the same broken expert class hide behind fear again. If the outbreak is serious, tell us the truth. If containment is necessary, show us the evidence. If past research decisions help create this climate of distrust, own it. That's how confidence is rebuilt. Not with propaganda, not with censorship, with facts. So I want to hear from you. Do you trust the public health establishment to level with the American people on Ebola, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and share this report with someone who still remembers the COVID lies. If you're new here, subscribe to Next News, turn on your alerts because we are going to keep following every angle of this story. I want to make sure you're also getting the news when the censorship machine drops the hammer. That's why we set up the secret number that I keep showing you on the screen here. All you have to do is text raw feed to 844-840-4963. There are thousands and thousands of patriots who are now getting the direct messages from me every night when YouTube says, well, you know, maybe you don't deserve that notification. We're just cutting out the middleman completely. So make sure you text the words raw feed to that number on your screen. And make sure you're also celebrating this year. It is our 250th year as a beautiful republic. Check out the merch shelf below and find something to celebrate with us. Okay, we got to get into what is going on at the DOJ. The new Todd Blanche era is becoming official. So we are going to get into that. And I did notice a message in the chat. Tuesday is our birthday at Next News Network. Is that right? My goodness. Maybe it is. Yeah, I think it started in June of 2012. I think that was when we began. So we must be going into like our 15th year, I think. I don't know, I'll have to look at the numbers, but thanks for reminding me. Podhead Kenny on the case. As always, good to see you guys. Good to see everyone chatting here. Great to see everybody coming in from Trump Daily Posts, from Next News, from Rumble, from Kick, from YouTube. Everybody's here tonight, and the news continues. Let's talk about what's going on at the DOJ. Okay. Right now, the story is not really about one nomination. It's about whether the Trump administration can permanently stop the Justice Department from ever being turned into a political weapon again. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has said the quiet part out loud. Roadblocks must be put in place so this abuse never happens again. That's not a routine confirmation soundbite. That is a blueprint. And now as President Trump moves to install Blanche full-time, the panic is spreading from Democrats to weak-kneed Republicans who suddenly look very nervous. So the question is simple. Who controls the future of the DOJ? The voters or the people who abused it? You see, for years, Americans watched the justice system get twisted against President Trump, his allies, and by extension, the millions of citizens who voted for him. We all remember what the former Biden administration and its allies normalized: selective prosecutions, media lawfare coordination, and a permanent ruling class belief that if they could not beat Trump politically, they would try to bury him legally. Now the Trump administration is saying enough. Todd Blanche is not being presented as just another lawyer in a nice suit. He's emerging as the man tasked with rebuilding the guardrails so the same machine cannot be turned loose again in 2029 or beyond. That's why this confirmation matters so much. If Blanche gets through, the administration can claim the American people voted for structural reform. If the establishment blocks him, then it proves the old system is still fighting to protect itself. And that is why Tillis matters. That is why Senate hesitation matters. And that's why Democrats are already screaming. While we're talking about putting real solutions in place instead of waiting for damage to pile up, this next message fits that exact theme. So you've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles, then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at a cellular level. Gibson says it's straight the stuff works, and that got my attention because in my own life I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety. It was one of those situations where you just want something that actually helps. That's why I want you to check out Red Light Therapy from Jonathan Otto at myredlight.com. I've got dozens of interviews with him right here on this channel that will blow your mind. But if you want to try it, use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles, and go see what red light therapy can do for you. Now back to the fight over whether Washington finally gets fixed instead of protected. See, here's the twist that the corporate media does not want to admit. Blanche is not talking like a caretaker. He's talking like an institutional reformer. When he says Democrats already showed America what they would do and that roadblocks must be built now, he's signaling a larger mission inside the Trump administration. This is no longer just about exposing the old abuse. It's about designing a Justice Department that cannot be hijacked the same way again. And once you understand that, every attack on Blanche suddenly makes perfect sense. So President Trump obliterating Senator Thom Tillis after he vowed to block Todd Blanche as AG based on January 6th. President Trump caught on Air Force One, not caught really, but during a gaggle on Air Force One, the question was raised. Listen.
Senator Tillis said he won't support Todd Blanche's confirmation unless Todd Blanche condemns January 6th. Do you have a reaction to that?
Senator Tillis is a loser. That's why he didn't run. He didn't run because I wouldn't support him. And he's just an angry man because he's not going to be a senator any longer. He wasn't respected in the Senate. He fought a lot of people. He fought Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth turned out to be a gem. Now, Senator Tillis is a loser, stone cold, and he's an angry man because I basically, he was forced to leave the Senate because I wouldn't support him, and he quit. So now he's trying to make trouble by, opposing anybody. Todd Blanche is a brilliant guy who everybody likes and everybody respects. And Tillis is always like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He should have done it before when he was a senator. He would have gotten wiped out in a race. But he needed my support, and I said, I can't give you my support. He's not qualified. He's not good for the position of senator. I didn't hear about what he did with Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is fantastic.
So Trump putting Thom Tillis on notice and defending Todd Blanche without blinking. Now watch Mehek Cook lay out why Democrats are panicking as Blanche starts going after fraud and shutting down the DOJ revenge machine. Listen.
Mehek, your thoughts of the Project 2029 for Democrats to go after those who are associated with the administration or those who they feel like they want to punish for working for Donald Trump?
Well, Katie, it's the Democrats' final act. They didn't learn anything from their autopsy report. Their hatred for President Trump is actually clouding their judgment. They're not able to bring back issues that matter most to the American people, and they're recycling the same issues. Boys and girls sports, hatred towards all Republicans, hatred towards President Trump. And now you have Chris Hahn attacking Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. When I heard the interview, and so did millions of Americans watching your show, and what he said was he's not going to worry about weaponization and politics. He's going to do his job, and if it happens, he's going to continue to make sure that Americans see what's happening. But this is what we have rejected time and time again. Hate has no place in America. What we want are solutions for affordability, safety, and security. And the reason Democrats
Where are they
today is because they refuse
Where are
to
those
secure the border.
solutions that they promised us? They're not there.
And this is another Democrat staging point where they continue to interrupt Republicans who have common sense. So that's my answer to you in terms of Democrats and their old tired playbook.
Heck, it was great to see you there for this.
So that's a bigger fight, not just exposing the left's obsession with revenge, but stopping it before they try again. Now Blanche says it outright, put the roadblocks in place so Democrats can't weaponize DOJ against Trump and his allies. He reveals he's moving to block the Democrat plans to weaponize the DOJ against President Trump.
Last question to you about the future. You said this week that you believe President Trump absolutely faced prison if he hadn't won the election in 2024. Democrats have been talking a lot about what they call Project 2029, their plans to prosecute the president, administration officials, ICE agents after the term is up if they regain power, either on Capitol Hill or in the White House. Do you believe that's a possibility? And what can be done to prevent this kind of political retribution from Democrats?
Well, do I believe it's a possibility that the Democrats will go after President Trump, his family, anybody that knows him, anybody that worked for him? I think they've proven that to be true. And what can we do about it is we can just keep on exposing. When we learn about the weaponization that happened for many years, we can keep on exposing it and putting roadblocks in place so it never happens again. I don't worry about, for myself, what happens in the future. I worry about this country. I worry about Democrats, some Democrats coming out and actually already forecasting what they're going to try to do if they get leadership again. And that's something the American people see too. The American people saw them do it for 4 years and rejected it wholehandedly. I was in the Oval Office last night with President Trump, okay? So that effort failed. And so I think that I would hope the Democrats would be a little smarter. They have so far proven themselves not to be, but it doesn't affect the work that we do.
All right.
It doesn't affect the work that we do. He's not talking theory. He's talking about locking the door on the same abuse Americans already rejected. Now hear how he responds to Trump's move to nominate him full-time. Now he plans to work the Senate to get it done.
Obviously, I'm honored and humbled that the president indicated he was going to nominate me today. I was with him last night at the dinner when he said that. I was confirmed a year ago to be the Deputy Attorney General. I still am the Deputy Attorney General. I will work with the senators. I have a good relationship with the Senate on both sides. I don't say no to phone calls. I'll meet with anybody that wants to meet with me. And I think the work that this department has been doing since President Trump took office, if you look at any stat across the board, it's much better. We're much safer. Our communities are better off. Drugs are coming off the streets, and that's what President Trump expects, and that's frankly what I think everybody in this country expects. So I'm looking forward to working with the senators and getting them the information they need through the confirmation process.
So Todd Blanche there says he'll take the calls, meet the senators, and make the case himself. But when Democrats tried their usual smear job on Capitol Hill, Rosa DeLauro got checked in real time.
Addendum, the second order?
No,
the only thing you're talking about here, so the blanket immunity is not something that you're going to move back on?
It's not blanket immunity. That's not true.
It is.
No, it's not.
Read it. Okay. United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs from and is hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims, counterclaims, causes of actions, appeals, requests for any reliefs. I mean, this is an order from you, but you're not prepared. You are prepared to say that the president and his family will be barred, are immune from. That's a yes.
No, it was not a yes. I had not answered the question. I can't answer if you want me to.
What are you doing with this?
Okay, so there was.
So after the hearing exchange, the real question is whether Senate Republicans will actually back Trump's pick or start waddling like the swamp always does. Up next, John Thune gets pressed on Blanche's confirmation and the war room not letting him slide. Listen.
Asked Thune point blank, will Blanche have a hard time getting confirmed? This is Thune. This is a profile in courage. Thune, hard to say. Most of our members are pretty differential to who the president wants in some of these key positions. He's obviously serving in the role already and clearly has experience in it. So that'll serve him well. But this is an environment where nothing's a safe or sure bet these days. This is how you lose the United States Senate. If you're not turfing out Thune right now, hey, you're 8 down in Ohio, you're 8 down in Maine, you're 8 down in North Carolina. You should win all 3 of those. That's all MAGA country. You're down in Georgia. You're down we're going to kick Alaska and Kansas and others in here. In Iowa, they're all going to get thrown in there because as a response like that acceptable, Mike Davis?
John Thune is such a pussy, and he just proved it with that statement. There is no question that Todd Blanche is qualified. there's no question that Todd Blanche will get confirmed because Chuck Grassley, my former boss, will make damn sure it happens. John Thune can't even get the Senate to pass legislation with the support of 80% of Americans, including a supermajority of Democrats and a supermajority of minorities, the Save America Act. John Thune's a pussy.
He's not lying. So what does it really mean? It means that Blanche's nomination is the first battle in a much bigger war over the structure of federal power. President Trump's not merely filling a vacancy. He's trying to place a trusted operator at the center of an overhaul that touches DOJ reform, anti-weaponization efforts, oversight, accountability, and future protections for the America First movement. And that is why Trump blasted Thom Tillis. That is why Senate squishies are wobbling. And that's why Democrats are already floating revenge fantasies for 2029. They know that if Blanche is confirmed and these reforms are built, the old playbook, raid, indict, leak, smear, repeat, gets a lot harder to run. This fight is about whether the system serves citizens or protects the club. So the bottom line is this. The Trump administration is moving from defense to offense. For years, the establishment used the machinery of government to target President Trump and intimidate the movement behind him. Now President Trump's doing what voters sent him to do, putting serious people in place to make sure that abuse cannot simply be revived by the next Democrat administration. Todd Blanche matters because he appears to be the architect of that next phase, and the resistance that we're seeing from Democrats and from nervous Republicans tells you everything. They're not afraid of a man. They're afraid of losing control over a system they once used against the American people. If you want a Justice Department that serves justice instead of politics, this is the fight to watch. Share this report, leave a comment, subscribe if you have not already, and answer this yes or no question. Should Senate Republicans back Todd Blanche and help President Trump lock in permanent anti-weaponization reforms? Let's have a conversation. Let's make sure you stay connected. When the algorithm decides that you don't deserve to get those notifications, when the next news network deserves to be buried under cat videos and CNN spin, I have an answer. All you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Very simple. Thousands of patriots have already done it. Have you? That's how you're going to get direct messages, direct notifications to the news from me to your phone. And celebrate America 250. We are almost there. July 4th around the corner. Are you ready to party? Let's celebrate together. Pick out something nice for yourself at the Next News merch shelf at the link, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com, or the merch shelf below this video. So Todd Blanche making his move, President Trump making it clear, but what's also clear is what happened in California. Stolen election now getting exposed, California counting exposed as the Supreme Court is about to make its move. So we've been tracking a lot of news today. We've already got the news out on Iran, Cuba, Ebola, Todd Blanche, and now we are moving to California and President Trump's remarks from the Oval Office. And then we got to talk about Obamagate and the latest there with Jim Comey. Some files have been exposed. The question is, who ordered the hoax? We're going to get to the bottom of that after this story. Right now, the real story out of California is not just who wins, it's whether Americans can trust a system that takes weeks to tell them what happened on Election Day. While ballots keep trickling in, margins keep moving, and another so-called ballot dump lands after election night. The public is asking the most basic question. Why does this keep happening? And just as that anger boils over, the Supreme Court is preparing to weigh in on late ballot counting in a case that could hit states like California right where it hurts. If that ruling lands hard, election month may be living on borrowed time. And here's why this matters. In a healthy republic, the count is supposed to confirm the result, not become the result. But in California, the counting process itself has turned into the headline. According to reports, millions of mail-in ballots remained uncounted. Los Angeles County was still processing huge batches, and Late counted ballots were once again shifting margins in ways that predictably favored Democrats. Whether every ballot is legal or not, that's not the only issue anymore. The issue is public confidence. Because when people watch vote totals move for days, then weeks, while officials insist everyone should just be patient, trust starts collapsing. Steve Hilton said what millions are thinking: if Florida can count fast, if India can count hundreds of millions in a day, why is California dragging this out for 35 days? The answer voters keep getting is bureaucracy, excuses, and process. And President Trump and Republicans have been clear: speed, transparency, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and rules that actually mean something. And without that, suspicion grows and the system loses legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Speaking of systems designed to confuse ordinary Americans, there's another one hitting seniors right in the wallet. So pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. See, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all meant to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That is the Medicare confusion industrial complex. And seniors are paying for it without even knowing it. You see, Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your pharmacies, and then compare plans to help you find the right fit. Some seniors could save as much as $1,100 a year. So don't guess. Don't get pressured. Get real help from Chapter. Call the number you see on your screen, 910-728-4109 today, and make sure you're not overpaying for coverage that you don't even want. Now back to the election system. Americans are already being told not to question. Because here's the twist. This is no longer just a California embarrassment. It may become the national test case. The Supreme Court case out of Mississippi is now hanging over the entire debate on postmarked ballots, grace periods, and whether states can keep counting long after Election Day. If the justices slam the brakes on late arriving ballots, California's bloated system could suddenly face a legal reckoning. At the same time, Republicans in Washington are showing that they're one rule change away from passing tougher election protections right now. Trump Daily Post making it clear the Supreme Court is about to drop a massive ruling on mail-in ballots, which could affect California counting. The case could strike down election month and late ballot counting in multiple states. Yes, this is huge.
The interesting thing is that there is a Supreme Court case pending right now. The court's already heard it. We're waiting at this end of the term in June. We get all of these last decisions, the big ones. This one came out of Mississippi, and it deals with a state law that says how long you can count ballots after Election Day, if they're postmarked, what the grace period is there. So I can't wait. We're going to get opinions next Thursday. Maybe that's in the pile, but it's certainly something that could, be a big resounding ripple effect across the country based on what they decide in Mississippi.
Yeah, this all changed during COVID. And California changed, like they were on steroids, the way they were changing their election laws in 2001, just extending the grace period that they were giving so many people. And it's led to this. And, Shannon, it's flown under the radar, because we've been focused on national elections 2 years ago and the midterms 2 years before that. But California, determining the balance of power in the House, we've been waiting on California for 4 years now. And yet again, we've got this one. Meanwhile, in the Senate.
So the justice may be weighing in on a ruling with real consequences for states like California. Now Steve Hilton unloads the 35-day count, comparing it to Florida, even India, to show just how broken the system is. Trump Daily Post making it clear. Let me see. Is this the same clip?
The interesting thing is that there is a Supreme Court case pending right now. The court's already.
The same clip. I think I've got it. Okay, here it is. Steve Hilton erupts on California's mail-in ballots, saying India counts 640 million ballots in a day.
In November. Now let's get to this absolute shambles of an election count. It's actually way worse than the president just mentioned. It's not 6 or 7 or 8 days. Here's from the Secretary of State's website today, 35 days.
Oh!
That's the plan, 35 days. This is an absolute shambles, a humiliation for California. It is making our state a laughingstock here in America and around the world. We have less than 10 million votes cast in this election in California, and it's going to take them a month to count them. India, 640 million. They do it in a day. States here in America, look at Florida, how quickly they get their count out. Within hours, same sort of numbers. They have early voting too. They have mail-in voting too, but they can do it in an hour. Here it takes a month. It is an absolutely inexcusable, calamitous catastrophe of incompetence from the same crew who bought you high-speed rail.
Yes.
Now it's snail's pace elections. It's not good enough.
Steve.
And today, David, I'm laying out a plan to change this. Election count accelerator plan. Straight after this interview, I'll be going to a press conference to lay that out.
So he calls it a humiliation, and he's right. When counting takes weeks, trust collapses and the swamp cashes in. Next, President Trump lays out the fix, the Save America Act with voter ID and proof of citizenship front and center.
So the Save America Act is all voters must show photo ID. So you go to vote and you show photo ID. Not complicated, right? You know, who could oppose it? They say it's an 80-20. It's not. It's about 99-1, and we'll never find the one person. Andy, congratulations, Andy, on a big victory.
Thank you for your help.
That's great. I appreciate it, but you're very good at what you do, and I've been backing you right from the beginning for a long time, right?
Backing you too, sir.
For years, that's right. You have. Thank you. Congratulations. You won a big election. So you have all voters must show photo ID identification. All voters must show a little thing called proof of citizenship. Would you say that's 99-1, Mr. Pennsylvania?
I would say that's maybe 100 to 0.
I would think so. They say
at least it should be.
No, but they say it's 80-20. It's not 80-20. It's 99. And we've never found the one person. There's another one. Then you have no mail-in ballots, but we want to be liberal, as they say. Or we'll say we want to be progressive. So it's no mail-in ballots. You see that's what's happening in California. They're rigging the election. Now, maybe we caught them, and maybe they won't be able to get away with it. They tried with me. They did it successfully the second time. The third time, we made it too big to rig. Too many votes. They couldn't do it. They can only go. They sort of gave up at about 9:07 when they got slaughtered with the votes that came in. But no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. So we're being very progressive, and we just don't want cheating in our elections. And you see it happening in California. Those numbers are coming down rapidly. They found a lot of mail-in ballots last night, shockingly. So we don't want that. Then we added best of. This is best of Trump. No men in women's sports. No transgender mutilization surgery for our children. I would say that's pretty close to 99-1 also. No men in women's sports. I would say that's pretty good. We had the quarterback, Jackson, is the quarterback for the Giants. He's a big, strong guy. And I said, how do you think you do in women's sports, Jackson? He said, pretty good, sir. He didn't know I was joking. He was not worried, so let me put it that way. He would have been the greatest athlete in the history of women's sports. You got to see the size of this guy. Like a male model, and he's going to be a great quarterback. So we talk about that. And so we just would like the Senate, Democrats, Republicans to pass it.
So Trump's message is simple. Secure the vote, shut down the cheating loopholes. Now look at what's happening in Los Angeles, where another late ballot drop is moving Democrat numbers and raising fresh red flags.
We are at LA County's massive processing center. This is the location where all of the ballots are supposed to be shipped and counted. And in the latest ballot dump, LA County says it processed 81,000 votes since the first big election night numbers, but there's still 688,000 to go. Karen Bass is strengthening her lead, picking up about 12,000 votes yesterday. Spencer Pratt added about 6,000 and remains in second. Third place, Nithya Raman added nearly 11,000 votes, eating away at Pratt's lead. Now, in the governor's race, an estimated 60% of the vote is processed. Republican Steve Hilton remains number one. Democrat Javier Becerra picked up 158,000 votes and is closing in on Hilton within about 1 percentage point. Democrat Tom Steyer in third. Now, the most recent mail-in ballots that were processed are favoring Democrats, as many analysts suggested they would. Inside the ballot processing center here in LA County, any ballot that was postmarked by Election Day Tuesday must be counted by law. The process takes so long in part because each ballot must have its signature verified, and if there's an issue, there's a 10-day period to have it cured. California's Secretary of State is defending it all, writing, "Accuracy comes before speed." California is the nation's largest voting state with millions of ballots to process and count. Taking the time to do this work correctly protects voters' rights and ensures the integrity of our election. Now, the state of California...
Yeah, sure. So after watching the ballot totals keep shifting, it's no wonder America wants hard safeguards in place. Now the Senate proves the fight is real. Mike Lee forces a Save America Act vote, and it lands at 50. This breaking overnight, Save America Act got 50 votes thanks to Senator Susan Collins voting in favor of Mike Lee's amendment. They just proved it can get 51 votes with J.D. Vance as the tiebreaker. This version of the bill still contains voter ID and proof of citizenship, but it needed 60. So no more excuses. Nuke the filibuster. Lee says this is the House-passed version of Save America, which still secures our election to a very strong degree. So what does it all really mean? It means that the fight is no longer just about access, it's about credibility. Democrats built a vote-by-mail machine during COVID. In states like California, well, they never want to give it up. The result is exactly what Americans see now: endless counting, shifting margins, and a public that feels locked out of the process. That's why the Supreme Court case matters. That's why the Save America Act matters, and that is why President Trump's America First movement is winning the argument. In the Senate, Republicans just proved voter ID and proof of citizenship can get 50 votes, with Vice President J.D. Vance available as a tiebreaker. The path is there. The only thing standing in the way is the Senate filibuster and the usual establishment excuses. So the bottom line is very simple. If your election system takes a month to count fewer than 10 million votes, people are going to doubt it. That's not irrational. That's common sense. Confidence is earned through clear rules, fast reporting, secure ballots, voter ID, and transparency from start to finish. California has become the symbol of what happens when government puts process above credibility, and now the country is watching. The good news is this, that under President Trump, Republicans are no longer pretending this is normal. They are pushing fixes. They are exposing the mess, and if the Supreme Court delivers a strong ruling on ballot deadlines, this whole rotten election month model could start collapsing. So here's my question for you. Should every state be required to finish counting by Election Day, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and share this report with someone who still thinks 35-day counting is acceptable. If you want more unapologetic America First coverage, subscribe to the Next News Network right now. But more importantly, go ahead and text that word, raw feed, those words, to 844-840-4963. I'm done with it. I'm so fed up with it. I'm cutting out the middleman. I'm cutting out YouTube directly because I've heard your complaints. I've heard your cries. I'm not getting notifications. I don't find you in my feed anymore. So this is the solution. I will send a direct message to you Monday through Friday when the news drops. So you can check it, so you can review what we've covered for the day, and you can make informed decisions for yourself and your family. And now I want you to celebrate. Celebrate America 250. We got some new merch in the merch shelf below this video. Pick something out and let's celebrate together. All right. We are moving right along here, heading into our final topic of the evening. And let's see what we've got here. Let me just go ahead and schedule some of these things out so that we have everything we need for when the news breaks. We've got to talk about Obamagate, though. Obamagate is not going away. But what we do hope will go away is Jim Comey behind bars. For a long time, that case is still simmering in the background. So, Brian, I got everything there locked and loaded, scheduled for you. So when you get everything ready to go, we can make sure that the news drops as expected. Okay, where are we going from here? Ah, yes. Russiagate files exposed. Right now, the Russiagate story may be entering a completely different phase. Not another cable news food fight, not another recycled talking point. We're now talking about claims of declassified records, whistleblower interviews, and newly surfaced FBI and CIA material that supporters say could move this from argument into evidence. Tulsi Gabbard's release, the resurfacing of old House intel work, and new reporting from John Solomon are all pointing to the same question. Who directed the intelligence? Who signed off on the assessments? And who knew the narrative was shaky from the start? If that trail is now opening up, then the people who sold this hoax to America have a very serious problem. You see, for years, the establishment hid behind one phrase: trust the intelligence. But what happens if the intelligence itself was shaped, narrowed, or directed to produce a pre-selected outcome against President Trump? See, that's why the story matters. The story is no longer just whether Russiagate was overblown. The story is who made the decision, what documents existed at the time, and whether top Obama-era officials pushed an assessment they wanted instead of the evidence supported. And according to the claims that are now circulating, investigators interviewed around 20 CIA and FBI officials, spent thousands of hours digging, and uncovered records that had been buried in a CIA vault for years. Then you connect that to Tulsi Gabbard's declassification push, to the old Devin Nunes warnings that were mocked at the time, and suddenly a very ugly picture starts to form. This is about whether the American people were manipulated, whether Trump was sabotaged before he even took office, and whether accountability is finally coming for the people who abused the system. And while the permanent bureaucracy loves hiding the truth until it's useful to them, smart Americans, they know you don't wait until the whole crowd catches on. See, if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today a very similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. See, silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the mass build-out of modern industry. That's why I want you to check out Noble Gold Investments. Go to nextnewsgold.com right now and learn how you could qualify for a free 10th ounce gold coin and start protecting your future with real assets. Because when the truth finally breaks wide open, the people who are prepared early are always the ones standing strongest. Now here's the twist the corporate media don't want you to touch. See, it's not just about Barack Obama as a headline. See, the deeper issue is the machinery. Multiple voices are now zeroing in on how the intelligence community assessment was built, what was excluded, and whether conclusions were effectively ordered from the top. See, that's a totally different battlefield. If the fight moves from media spin to document trails, interview notes, and internal records, then the same people who laughed off these questions for years may soon have to answer them under oath. 20 CIA and FBI agents dropped a political nuke on Obama by confirming that Obama and a former CIA director fabricated the Russia hoax, which was locked away in a CIA vault for nearly a decade to discredit President Trump's election by manipulating intelligence. Watch.
Fox News alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama.
So if Obama and Brennan push a false intel assessment, the next question is simple. How far did the cover-up go? John Solomon says the Mar-a-Lago raid ties back to 2015 and 2016, and he names Obama as the man at the center of it.
Donald Trump's home because they had to cover up what happened all the way back to 2015 and 16. That's what that grand
that's what the
Hillary is.
So, okay, they did these things. So there's an intel, there's a portion of the intel, CIA, FBI, whoever they are, the Department of Justice, wherever they came from.
That's right.
But they're acting on behalf of whom?
I'm going to say Barack Obama is the head of the conspiracy when they're done. He'll be an unindicted co-conspirator if they get all the evidence that they think they're going to get from the agencies. Why? We know he was told Hillary Clinton in July was hanging a fake Russian shingle. He allowed his administration to pursue a case. After the election, he was told that Vladimir Putin didn't interfere in the election to help Donald Trump, and he got it reversed and had it, even though the Intelligence Committee didn't agree, they changed it. On January 5th of 2017, 15 days before Donald Trump was in office, about to come into office the first time, they sat in a room and said, hey, the FBI has concluded Mike Flynn is an innocent man. How can we make him a guilty man? The president sat in that meeting with the FBI. He didn't belong in a meeting like that. Barack Obama set in motion. Now, was he trying to help Hillary Clinton win the election? Of course. Where this all ends, I think I would not be surprised if before the end of the summer you saw Barack Obama get a grand jury subpoena. I would not be surprised.
Wow.
Remember, he has immunity because the president.
Oh, that's right.
So he can't claim the fifth.
And the other thing.
Oh, the end of the summer. What do you think about that? So Solomon's pointing straight at Obama. In the January 5th meeting on Mike Flynn, ex-former CIA officer who worked under Brennan, makes it even sharper, saying Brennan belongs in prison. CIA officer Brian Dean White. John Brennan was my boss at the CIA, and he belongs in prison. And that's the headline right there at Fox News.
John Brennan was my boss at the CIA. He belongs in prison. Brian, that's a pretty heavy charge. Explain what your case is against Brennan and why.
Well, I think that the declassified intel that we've gotten over the past number of weeks shows a very clear seditious conspiracy. So understand that in the summer of 2016, that there was absolutely no predicate, and I don't need to tell you this, there was no predicate to start the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Trump and any allegations of Trump-Russia collusion. There was no evidence. Indeed, John Brennan briefed that to President Obama, that this whole thing was being cooked up by Hillary Clinton. So it was false. It was a Clinton smear, but yet the FBI launched it anyway. And then we've got this Steele dossier that both the FBI and the CIA investigated. They knew that it was garbage. They knew that it was coming from the Clinton campaign, but they did it or included it anyway. And now we get to this creation of this Obama ICA document, this Intel Community Assessment that can normally take upwards of a year. I mentioned it earlier. Brennan took charge of that at the direction of Barack Obama. He put together, cooked up this document that had absolutely unverified information in it, garbage intel. He was warned by his Russia operations officers and analysts, don't include it, this Steele dossier. He did anyway, he and Comey. And then, of course, they briefed it to over 200 people in Washington, D.C., as New York Times later said, virtually guaranteeing it would leak. Right, exactly. So it was a final op by Barack Obama, James Comey, and John Brennan to destroy President Trump and rip away the rights of the voters who chose Donald Trump to be in the White House. So all that then collectively is a seditious conspiracy. John Brennan used his position at the CIA at the direction of Barack Obama to attack this country, to try to destroy Donald Trump in his first term. And they got away with a lot. And so that is why I want to see John Brennan in prison. He absolutely...
So that's the inside case against Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. Now, go back to the moment Devin Nunes tried to warn the country in real time that Trump transition officials were being monitored and unmasked. Devin Nunes vindicated.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear, none of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team. The House.
So Nunes says it early. The swamp moved fast to sideline him. Up next, more declassified material points to Hillary Clinton's camp and even George Soros' world pushing the Trump-Russia smear as diversion from her email mess. More declassified documents and emails released by CIA director reveal Clinton, Hillary, conspired with the intelligence community and George Soros to overthrow the United States government in 2016.
Documents contain emails, allegedly from the senior vice president of the George Soros Open Society Foundation. He quotes a Clinton campaign advisor saying, quote, "It will be a long-term affair and to demonize Putin and Trump," and adds that, quote, "later the FBI will put more oil into the fire," unquote. Other emails reveal Hillary Clinton approved the idea of tying Trump and Russia to election interference. And that was a scheme hoping the allegations would distract people from her own email scandal. These documents provide clear evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign was behind the Russia hoax and that the FBI knew what the Clinton team was up to, acknowledging that the info they were receiving about the Trump campaign may have come from the Clinton camp. Despite this, the Obama intel community forged ahead with their 2017 assessment, concluding that Russia aspired to help Trump win the election.
So if Hillary's team helped light the match, next clip shows who kept the fire burning. Tulsi Gabbard's declassified documents lay out how Obama rejected the original finding and had Brennan's CIA produce the narrative anyway. And this is what we presented earlier.
Just got a peek inside Obama's black book, and it turns out Barack knew the Russia hoax was a hoax all along, but pushed it anyway to sabotage the Trump presidency. DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassifying pages and pages of documents, showing Obama's intel guys briefed him just weeks after the 2016 election that the Russians didn't actually sway the election. Quote, "We assessed that Russian and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. election results. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes." But Obama just couldn't accept that. So he and his staff instructed intel agencies to cook up new reports to support Russia collusion. Quote, "After the meetings, Clapper's executive assistant emailed intelligence community leaders, tasking them to create a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request that detailed the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election. Tulsi Gabbard described what she found as a conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. And she says the people involved should be prosecuted and has made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. We knew Hillary created the dossier, and now we have proof that Barack was calling the shots and the documents to prove it.
So that's the alleged chain of command right there. Obama, Brennan, Comey, Clapper. Now shifting to Trump's response because he's making it clear what comes next, rooting out the deep state holdovers still buried inside the DOJ and FBI. Trump announcing he will hunt down the scum in the deep state after Comey confirmed agents are waiting his term out.
Over the weekend, Mr. President, he suggested that there's still people in your DOJ and FBI that are waiting you out. They're waiting until your administration is over to get back to work. Do you think those people are still in the DOJ and FBI?
I hope not. Well, if they are, we're going to seek them out. We'll seek them out. We'll get rid of them. Okay? Because you have in every agency, you have scum. And certainly they did in the FBI and DOJ. But Todd Blanche is doing a fantastic job. Cash is doing a very good job. So we will prevail. I've been standing here a long time with you, many years, right? And they've been saying, I think it's it. I think he's trouble. Here I am, you know. It's a very constant situation. But I think you're going to find that we have great people in the FBI and we have great people in DOJ. Todd Blanche has really been doing a great job.
So President Trump was responding to what Comey said, telling the rank and file to hang on for 2.5 years and they could rebuild under a Democrat.
Not looked at from the top level. The people running it, if you're bragging about forcing out career prosecutors and agents because the president doesn't like a lawful investigation they conducted, something is seriously broken at the top. But I have great confidence in the people down below who are just trying to hang on. And I'm urging them, hang on. 2.5 years, and then we can rebuild these institutions. But we need good people in those roles. America does.
All right. Director Comey, let me turn to your...
Hopefully we'll see him in an orange jumpsuit soon. He's basically waving the flag for the same bureaucracy. Trump says he's cleaning out next. John Solomon says new documents inside the FBI may be serious enough. The grand jury will need to hear directly from Obama himself.
If you saw a grand jury subpoena to former President Barack Obama, I think there will be a need to summon him based on some of the evidence that's now public or about to become public. We've done a lot of talking about him, and he can't be indicted most likely, which also means he can't claim the Fifth Amendment. And I would keep an eye on that dynamic. I also think that there is big new documents being found in the last few days inside the FBI, the Justice Department, and inside the intelligence communities that go all the way back to the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, all the way up to and including Jack Smith. And I think there's going to be some pretty big revelations with that. And so you'll have information coming out, and that information immediately being digested into a accountability prosecution team down here in Florida. And so the one takeaway I had from just doing a lot of reporting this week is that I think the grand jury is going to need to hear from Barack Obama to understand some of the things that happened on his watch. And
so we may soon be hearing from Barack Obama because the pressure keeps building. The paper trail may be getting bigger. Solomon adds another piece, text showing Hillary planned to use Biden as the plant that Trump has the Russia problem. That was the plant to line up the public.
Solomon, let's start with the breaking news, and I believe you might have a little bit of news to break either tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, I do. We'll lean into it right now. So this email was, and these intercepts were part of a very secret U.S. program where we spy on our enemies. And the government has the ability to determine if this email is real, but technology it would have to reveal would be very sensitive. And so there is a balancing act that has played out here in the last few weeks as people decided what to do with this. This is an explosive piece of evidence, but it's just a piece of evidence. We have to now, in the government, find out, did it really happen this way? But I will tell you something that did happen in the summer of 2016. U.S. intelligence, when they first intercepted this, began to look at some other things. Could this be true? Could the Russians really have something? Have they stumbled onto a plot? One of the things they intercepted were text messages that showed that the first thing Hillary Clinton was going to do was to turn to Vice President Joe Biden and see if he would take the first blow against Donald Trump. Would he go out right in the middle of July and say, I think Donald Trump's got a Russia problem? Well, they watched that happen in real time. First in 2 interviews, then at a speech at the Democratic National Committee. It led some of our U.S. intelligence analysts to believe that what the Russians had captured was an ongoing plot and that it was really going on. And then a few days later, the FBI opens up, just like the Russian intelligence suggested. What we are sadly lacking is a complete investigation. This 10 years later, Chris Wray's FBI, John Durham's investigation, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, James Comey never fully investigated this. We could authenticate this if we put our elbow grease into it. The government owes us an answer to find out if this is all true. But Joe Biden.
So, what does it mean? It means that the Russiagate debate appears to be moving out of the realm of theory and into the realm of records. That's the real earthquake here. Not just accusations, documentation. Not just outrage, decision change. Supporters of President Trump are arguing that newly declassified files, FBI discoveries, and old suppressed reports could establish who directed the narrative. Barack Obama. Right? Who approved the ICA, and whether officials knowingly advanced claims that did not match underlying intelligence. That's why Devin Nunes is suddenly being discussed again, and that's why Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Crossfire Hurricane, and January 17th all keep resurfacing. The question now is simple. What can be proven, who can be summoned, and how much of this story was hidden from the American people on purpose? And then, of course, there's James Comey out there practically telling people inside the system just to hang on until a Democrat gets power again. Well, President Trump makes clear the deep state cleanup is not over. That is the current moment. The Trump administration is pushing transparency, declassification, and accountability while the old guard is signaling to hold the line and wait it out. Americans have every reason to ask why. If the Russia hoax was built through manipulated intelligence, selective leaks, and coordinated political messaging, then this was not just dirty politics. It was an attack on a duly elected president and on the voters who put him there. President Trump was right to fight. His supporters were right to question, and now the people who smeared him may finally be cornered by their own paper trail. Share this report, comment below, and subscribe if you are done letting the same corrupt class rewrite history. And yes or no, should every official tied to the creation of the Trump-Russia narrative be forced to testify under oath? It's time for that conversation to take place. But I want you to stay connected with me so we can continue to have this conversation. There's a number on the screen, 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to that number. Why? Because they are sick and tired of being suppressed. They're sick and tired of never getting a notification when the news drops, because you guys depend on the next news network to deliver you the unfiltered truth. I want to make sure you continue to get it. We're cutting out the middleman, cutting out YouTube directly. We're going straight to you. So make sure you text those words to 844-840-4963. We are on the cusp of the greatest celebration of our republic. President Trump is behind it, and we are celebrating right alongside him. I want to celebrate with you. We've got some new merch. It's down below in the merch shelf and at the link shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick out some America 250 gear and celebrate America 250 with us. All right, folks, that's the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. Another record night. Over almost 25,000 people across all platforms broadcasting on X at Next News, broadcasting at Trump Daily Posts, broadcasting on YouTube, on Rumble, and even on Kick. Yeah, we got a couple viewers over there. Great to see you. I'm glad you joined us today. Tell your friends over there on Kick about what you saw tonight. And get them educated. I know Kick is about gaming and streaming and, things that may not be related, but we are going to plant a flag there too. Because wherever the truth can be told is where we will tell it. So the weekend's upon us. It is Friday. It's been a wonderful, wonderful day. And what are we at? It's 6:57 p.m. Central, 7:57 p.m. Eastern Time. Temperature currently in Washington, D.C. is 89 degrees, and it's partly cloudy. But there will be sunshine. I promise you that. because that's what we do here is we shine a light where it needs to be. So keep shining a light with us. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.